Well, hello again, boys and girls. Today we have another lesson. Today, instead of talking about bees, we're going to learn about a world that's going on underneath our feet. The exciting world of worms. Hi boys and girls, it's so good to be back today with you. I hope you all enjoyed learning about bees last time we were together. Have you been looking out for those bees flying around, pollinating and gathering the nectar to make that delicious honey? It's so wonderful to learn about those neat things of nature. Well, today we're going to learn about something else that's really, really important for our farm, but it's something that we don't think about very often. It's happening underneath our feet. Today we're going to talk about worms. Worms are the hard workers of the farm that are so very important. I have with me a tablespoon here of garden soil. Do you realize that there are millions of life forms living right here in this tablespoon of soil that I have? There's bacteria, microorganisms, microbes, all swirling around. It's like another universe living right in this little bit of soil that we have right here. Today, we're going to talk about one of the bigger parts of the important soil, and that's the worm. There's a little worm inside of here, which is just part of the life that is teeming inside the soil, just this little bit. Worms are so hard working. How many of you work at school for 4 or 5 hours and you go home and you're so tired because you worked hard and that takes a lot of energy? You know what? Worms work 24 hours a day, 365 days of the year. They're the hardest workers on the farm that never stop, and they have a very important job. When you have worms in your soil, they're doing the work of loosening that soil up. They're crawling through that soil, working it, allowing it to be open to get air down into the soil, to allow the water to get down into the plant roots, and making food for those microorganisms that we can't even see with our eyes, but that are alive down there. Worms have many important jobs. Soil that is full of worms grows much better plants than soil without worms. You know, they did a test in a laboratory one time, and they put dirt in a container that had dead worms and soil, and they put some seeds in there, and they fertilized it with a chemical fertilizer. They had another pot, and they put worms, live worms, in with mediocre soil, and when the test was going on, the plants grew so much bigger in the one that had the worms, because they're always adding nutrients to the soil, which then are taken up by the plant and produces a better crop. So worms are far better than any chemical you can buy at the store, and they don't cause any harm to the earth, or they'll never cause harm to you, at least this kind of worm. Just like with bees, how I told you there are thousands of different types of bees, there are thousands of different kinds of worms. Today I want to show you an earthworm. Isn't this cool? Now, did you know that earthworms have no eyes, no ears? In fact, they don't even have a head. But at the front of their body, they have a mouth. And in that mouth, they take in the dirt and they swallow that dirt, and it works down their body, and it goes down this tube all the way down to what's called the anus, and they poop out the dirt, and it is so full of nutrients after they've eaten it. They're a segmented animal, and if you look closely, you'll see those little segments everywhere you look, and they're crawling forward and backwards. The worm can go as well backwards as they can forward. But this little guy's job is to work his way through the soil, and as he eats that soil and it runs through his body, it changes that soil's composition. It makes it richer, it fills it full of nutrients and vitamins for the plants to suck up and take into their system. So they have a really important job. So boys and girls, I have here a section of the ground that I dug up. It has some grass growing on it, and you can see the roots going down into the soil way down in there. And let's open this up and see if we can find some worms inside living. Oh, look at here. I think there's some worms in here. There they are. And the worms, oh, here he is. I interrupted his work. He probably just wants to get back to work and have me leave him alone. But the worm crawls through the soil and loosens that up among the roots. And this is the part, the root here, that sucks up the nutrients that are in the soil. So if our soil is good and healthy, the plants we grow are also healthy. So these worms have a very important job to do. So that's an earthworm. Later, as we continue on in our lessons, we're going to talk about compost. And I think we'll look more at those worms in the compost process, but I also have a lot more worms that are decomposers. That's another important job of worms. They decompose. They eat the plant particles that are dead, and as they eat them, they break them down, again, like I've said, into nutrients. But look at all those lovely worms. They're just doing their job, breaking things down, making that soil rich so we can grow good crops. Sometimes people think worms are gross and yucky, but I think they're amazing. I think they're fantastic. And we hardly think about them because they're under our feet. So next time you see a worm, thank him for the work he does. I've got a great idea, boys and girls. Let's go down to the compost pit and see if we can dig up some worms and do some hunting for worms. Come along with me. So this is one of my mini compost piles that I have. We're going to have a whole nother lesson another day about compost. I love compost. It is so wonderful. But today I think we're going to hunt to see if we can find some worms in this pile. Oh my. Look at this, boys and girls. Right with the first turnover of the shovel. You just see this so full of worms as they're eating down through all of this old plant life, old manure, turning it from just waste to wonderful nutrients. So everywhere in this pile, we've got worms. They like the moist soil. And when you have lots of worms, a pile of stuff like this doesn't even stink because they turn it into what they call black gold. It's like gold because it's great for the garden. Boys and girls, I hope you learned a little bit more about worms today. You don't even think about them often. They're working, they're doing their job down under our feet. Unless we dig a hole or go fishing, we often don't ever see a worm that we can thank. But next time you see a worm, think about how hard that worm works and what an important job they have, not just here on my farm, but in your yard, at the school grounds, everywhere you find something growing. It's also important to remember that we shouldn't use chemicals and fertilizers or chemicals in them on our soil. That hurts the worms, and we need the worms to stay alive and active to make our world a better place. So try to not use that chemical fertilizer. Just put more compost in your soil and take care of those worms. Have a great week, and we'll see you next time. Well, if you liked that video, be sure to press like and subscribe to more